Thank you for your company. You're watching Look North, our top story tonight. The University of York gives cash to students to help with the rising cost of living.
Everyone's thinking that, am I going to be able to afford to stay where I'm living, or am I going to have to move sort of out of town?
The union says the average student has only £50 a month to spend after rent and bills. Also tonight, COVID infection rates rise again in Yorkshire. They've doubled in just 3 weeks. The new vehicles helping people with mobility issues get around the North York moors. And not too hot, but just right. Meet the Yorkshire woman who's been competing at the World Porridge Making Championships.
And what a lovely day it's been, lots of sunshine. What's the rest of the week looking like? Join me for the detailed forecast.
Hello, welcome on this Monday evening. We're going to start the week looking at student life. The University of York has become the first university to give some students extra cash to help them with rising energy bills. They'll be giving out £150 grants to some student households. Now, this comes as research from the National Union of Students says that once bills and rent are paid for, students have, on average, £50 left to spend each month. Another survey found on average students were spending £924 each month. That's up from £810 a month last year. That's an increase of around 14%, so above the general inflation level of around 10%. Now, more than 80% of students say that they're turning to family, to credit cards, or to loans for additional help. And 90% of those surveyed by the NUS said that the cost of living was having a negative impact on their mental health. Well, our reporter Olivia Richwald is at the University of York for us tonight. Olivia, many people will remember not having much cash as a student, but it's really difficult for those at university at the minute, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Well, this is University of York's famous lake, and students have been coming here for almost 60 years. But there's never been a more expensive time to study and be a student. Joining me now is Dr. Wayne Campbell. You've announced £6 million of help for students. Tell me why and how that's being broken down.
Yeah, we conducted a survey of our students, a tele-survey, and that informed us that 60% of our students are actually concerned about their personal finances. And we wanted students to actually be able to focus on their studies. So what we've done is introduce a number of measures, financial measures, food measures to support students, including bursaries, the household energy crisis grant as well, and also student support, targeted student support, and in addition to that, also measures to help students in other ways. So we've introduced food options and varieties for them. They've got food vouchers, we've subsidised food, and we also offer free food as well, and a free laptop, and a message for everybody out there. We've also abolished library fines this year as well. And in addition to that, we've also introduced a website to help students to find out a little bit more about the support that's available to them and how better to manage their finances. And the one thing that I'm really would urge the government to do was to look at what more they can do to actually support students that are in financial hardship during the cost of living crisis. Any help would be welcome.
Thank you very much. And as they say, every little helps with the library fines. Let's go over here and meet some students. Now, three of them, Ellen, Izzy and Hannah. Now, you are both third-year students and you both work 3 jobs. Tell me how the cost of living has changed in your 3 years here.
I think for me, the biggest thing has been rent, but also food prices. So even a loaf of bread has tripled in price. And as a student, so this is my first time, obviously, living away from home, cooking, feeding myself. So I think it's really important that the university are introducing these measures that are helping us and helping all students.
And obviously students are known for going out and drinking. Have you noticed that your friends or yourself have curtailed any of that?
I would say so. I think there's definitely been a level of us being a little bit more picky about when and where we go out. Like, we'll only really go out on student nights, or we won't drink as much, or we'll only drink at home. It's like a very, it has to be a little bit more of a planned process now as opposed to just kind of going out whenever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And of all those stats we heard, the one that shocked me the most was 90% of students are worried about their mental health. You work for the university, the Union of Students.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're doing to help students with their mental health.
So at the Student Union, we take the approach that the university is a community. And I think a really important aspect of that is making sure that our students are integrated and feel part of the university community. And that's something that we're fostering through all of our student activities at the Students' Union. We also have a mental health guide for students, which is a massive bank of wellbeing support that they can access as well.
OK, well, thank you very much. Well, York might have been the first university to offer these grants and help, but it's not the last. Today, Sheffield Hallam also announced £5 million of help for its hard-up students.
I'm sure more will follow suit. Olivia, thank you. Next tonight, former Yorkshire cricketers Azim Rafiq, Andrew Gale and Jack Brooks have been reprimanded by the sports governing body for racist social media posts. They all admitted the charges. Dave Edwards is here for more on this. Dave, this is a story that just keeps on going, isn't it?
Yeah, Amy, this is just the latest episode in a saga that emerged 2 years ago when the former Yorkshire bowler Azim Rafiq first spoke out. He said there was institutional racism at Yorkshire and he'd been repeatedly abused during his time there. Now, you might remember in the fallout from all that, Yorkshire sacked 16 members of staff, including Andrew Gale, who was head coach at the time. Today, Gale and Rafiq and another former Yorkshire player, Jack Brooks, have all been given an official reprimand by the Cricket Discipline Commission for racist posts on social media. Now, I can't go into exactly what they said for obvious reasons, but I can tell you Rafiq and Gale's comments related to Jewish people and Jack Brooks's comments were about black people. Now, they all accepted the charges and the Commission said it won't be fining them for various reasons, including the fact that Rafiq and Brooks both apologised straight away, and Gale is already facing significant financial losses after he was sacked.
What's been the reaction to this today?
Well, Azim Rafiq has responded straight away on social media today. He says, "You'll hear no complaint from me. It is deserved, and I fully accept this reprimand. I want to repeat my apology to the Jewish community. I remain ashamed and embarrassed." Now, as I say, Amy, this is just the latest development in a long-running story. The Independent Commission for Equity in Cricket is writing a report based on thousands of pieces of evidence all about racism in the sport, and the England and Wales Cricket Board has already warned that that's likely to make uncomfortable reading.
Yeah, it's not the last we'll hear of it, Dave. Thank you. A mother and daughter from South Yorkshire who were bereaved by suicide have helped develop a toolkit to help other families cope. It's been launched to coincide with World Mental Health Day. Sarah and Freya Petherbridge lost 18-year-old Zach, a much-loved son and brother, to suicide 2 years ago this month. They've been speaking to Kathy Killick.
Zach was 18 when we lost him. He was talented, he was popular, he was so funny. And he was an amazing son and just a wonderful big brother. He was so much more than this one thing that he did.
Zach Petherbridge took his own life 3.5 weeks after starting university in 2020. His death came out of the blue.
It's a very isolating grief. You can be surrounded by so many people who are loving and supportive, but still feel really alone. Because it's the stigma, it's the shame, it's the guilt. Even though I've nothing to feel guilty for, it is really difficult.
Sarah and Freya Petherbridge have battled unimaginable grief since losing Zach, but they've used that experience to help develop an online toolkit for others going through this devastating type of bereavement. Called Walk With Us and put together by the youth charity Chili Pep, it's practical, comforting and supportive thanks to them.
I definitely think I learnt to be more grateful for what I have, because I mean the sad truth is that you never know when you're going to lose someone or something. But I also think I learnt that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, because you can meet new people who have the same experience, and you can grow a lot as a person, I think. It can be quite overwhelming at times. It feels like everyone's, looking at you, associating you with that and thinking, oh yeah, she's been, through something like that. And you can become quite paranoid with how you're feeling, and thinking everyone's looking at you and things like that.
What got you through it?
I think just remembering that, he would have been proud of me, and just, I don't know, thinking ahead and thinking, remembering that I'm not alone.
We need to have this taught about in school. We teach children in school how to cross the road safely. We teach them the dangers of smoking. We teach them the dangers of substance misuse. when really the biggest danger to themselves is themselves.
Suicide claims more young lives than anything else. Bereaved families are desperate for that to change. Cathy Killick, BBC Look North, Sheffield.
It's just heartbreaking, isn't it? If you or someone you know has been affected by the issues raised in tonight's report, you can contact the BBC Action Line. That's bbc.co.uk/action line for details of organisations which offer advice and support. We're going to talk about COVID now. It's still around. Rates are continuing to rise across our region as the number of hospital beds occupied by patients testing positive. Latest estimates from the Office for National Statistics shows that 128,700 people were infected in Yorkshire and the Humber as of the 24th of September. This is equivalent to around 1 in 40 of the population. 3 weeks earlier, that figure was just 1 in 80. Meanwhile, the number of hospital beds occupied by patients with COVID-19 has also increased. Last Wednesday, there were 933 beds occupied across the 13 trusts in our region. This is an increase of 76% in just 2 weeks, although many will be in hospital for other reasons, but have also tested positive. Now, Dr. Stephen Griffin is a virologist for the University of Leeds. He's also a member of the independent SAGE, a group that provide expert opinion on the pandemic. I asked him how worried he was about these rises.
We're seeing a quite sharp increase again. Our fourth wave this year is well underway, and as we've heard, the number of cases in our region and across the country is climbing very rapidly, and that's really just a consequence of our behaviour. We're moving indoors, we're mixing more, we're back to school, back to university. This was predicted and unfortunately happening before our eyes.
How much difference will the autumn booster campaign make to the rising numbers?
Yeah, well, that's underway, and thankfully there is reasonable uptake, but you're still sort of talking about 30 odd percent, 40% of people in the high risk groups getting them now. So we really need to accelerate that, keep it going. My view is that we should really be boosting as many people as possible.
You mentioned there about the booster. Of course, not everyone is eligible at the moment. How much protection does a previous vaccine or infection provide?
It's important to remember that our vaccines, even though they're based on an older version of the virus, still gives us really good protection against the most severe forms of disease most of the time, but it's never 100%.
In terms of hospital numbers, what do you see happening over the coming months?
We've already seen over 1,000 hospitalisations a day across the country, and we mustn't forget that we've seen over 23,000 people die from COVID this year, when supposedly we're just sort of ignoring it. So I think we really need to be mindful that this could put huge pressure on our NHS services. People
hope that COVID has gone away, but as these figures show, it is on the rise again. Can you see a scenario where other measures like masks are made mandatory again? Because some hospitals have done that, others are slightly more relaxed with the rules.
I think it's very worrying that something around 30% of new cases are being caught in hospital at the moment. And of course, hospital is where we're going to see the majority of our most vulnerable people being. So yeah, I think it's really important that in these highly sensitive areas, in these high risk areas, that we do something, but we shouldn't think of them as restrictions. We should think of them as protections to mitigate the risks of COVID and other diseases, that will ensure that everybody can access healthcare properly and safely.
That was Dr. Stephen Griffin there. A former carer from North Yorkshire has been jailed after stealing tens of thousands of pounds from a vulnerable man she befriended. 37-year-old Alana Squire from Catterick had been employed to care for a man in his 60s but began using his bank card to withdraw cash. Squire initially admitted to taking around £14,000, but investigators found the total to be more than £46,000. She was sentenced to 3 years after pleading guilty to fraud by abuse of position. Right, let's move on to sport now. We start it with this story. A group of 75 former rugby league players are set to take legal action against the Rugby Football League for negligence. Lawyers for the players said many now suffer from various irreversible neurological impairments, including dementia and motor neurone disease. The RFL say it takes players' safety and welfare extremely seriously. Sally Hurst is here. Sally, what more do we know about this?
That's right. These 75 former players
all say that they've suffered neurological conditions as a result of repeated concussions and knocks during their playing career, and they allege that the RFL didn't do enough to stop that happening. Now, most of these players don't want to be named at the moment. A few of them have gone public, though, and they include Francis Maloney. Now, he played for Leeds and Wakefield and Castleford, and he spoke earlier this year about the devastating impact of being diagnosed with dementia at the age of just 48. Now, of course, rugby league is a contact sport and there are risks involved, and many of the players themselves think that those risks are part and parcel of the game. That's a point I put to the lawyer who's bringing this case. He said, though, of course, that a brain injury is much more serious and has longer effects than a broken bone, for example.
The brain is ultimately a delicate organ that needs protection, particularly in collision sports. Everything we've seen, including our experts as well, suggest that the scale of this is incredibly high. We believe up to 50% of current and former rugby players may end up with some form of neurological impairment ultimately.
Gosh, 50%, that's half. That's a really worrying statistic, isn't it? What have the RFL said about this?
Well, yes, it is worrying. The RFL says it takes player safety and welfare extremely seriously, and it's been desperately sad to hear of these players' problems and difficulties. It says the sport continues to improve and develop its approach to concussion, to head injury assessment, education, management and prevention across the whole game. It's worth noting as well that any player who gets a concussion now is not allowed to play at all for 11 days minimum. Rugby Union has already brought a similar case to this in the summer. So this is definitely a growing issue within contact sport. A sobering thought as well as we approach the Rugby League World Cup, which starts at the weekend as well. Indeed. And Sheffield Wednesday stay third in League One after a 3-0 victory over Cheltenham, and they were 3 sensational goals. The first came just after 3 minutes with a free kick from Windass from 30 yards. But Wednesday had to wait until the 83rd minute to make it 2-0 with this from Bannon. And that was quickly followed by a third 2 minutes later from Deli Bashiru. 3 goals, 3 points and a clean sheet. Great to see. And the Sheffield Tigers Speedway team are through to their first ever grand final starting tonight. The Tigers face Bellevue in the first leg of the Premiership grand final. That's in Manchester, with the second leg at home on Thursday. And if you're not familiar with Speedway, these motorbikes have fixed gears, no brakes and virtually no suspension, so it's an exciting ride. And two-time Paralympian and NHS doctor Kim Daybell has announced his retirement from table tennis in order to focus on his medical career. The 30-year-old from Sheffield was a junior doctor when the pandemic hit, and he sacrificed his own hopes of competing at Tokyo 2020 to work on the NHS frontline. He won nearly 50 international medals in a 15-year table tennis career and now hopes to inspire more disabled people to work in medicine. I've got no doubt that he will do exactly that.
Absolutely. Some people are just too talented, aren't they?
Yes,
too many
absolutely.
talents to turn hand to. Sally, thank you. Now, we may take all the stunning views and scenery on offer on our doorstep for granted in our region, but for many disabled people, accessing the countryside can be really difficult. The North York Moors National Park has started providing mobility vehicles, bringing thousands of people access to places that they'd not been able to reach before. Phil Connell has more.
It's described as the best view in England. For some, though, exploring our national parks is not that simple.
Turn round and put my bum on it.
On the North York Moors, though, these high-tech vehicles called trampers have been described as game changers. For people like Paul, they've changed his life. Using designated paths, he too can now enjoy the views. The vehicles providing access to areas which until now had been off limits.
It was a very hard work. In fact, I gave up. I used to sit and have an ice cream or something like that. But now this has just opened up far more opportunities.
Across the country, trampers can now be used in more than 50 locations, 4 here in the North York Moors and 5 in the Lake District. And while the vehicles themselves cost around £8,000, you can rent them with a membership card that costs just £10 a year.
Hello. Hello.
When we walked up onto the viewing platform, the first thing I heard you say was, wow, you know, what view, and why would we not want more people, you know, to experience that?
And until now, not everyone's been able to get a view like this.
With limited mobility, you can't get to even relatively close places. You can't get to experience views like this unless perhaps you're in the car. And who wouldn't prefer to experience a view like this when you're out, you know, in the fresh air?
Well, for a start, it sort of cheers up your day completely. We worry so much about what's going on in Ukraine and things like that. You come out here and it's just peaceful. You see everything as it should be.
And nice to be back.
And nice to be back, very nice to be back.
The trampers allow Paul to explore the North York moors on his own and whenever he likes, now able to enjoy the surrounding beauty like everyone else. Phil Connell, BBC Look North, Sutton Bank.
Great to see too. Finally tonight, the burning question of the day. Do you take salt or sugar in your porridge? Well, the World Porridge Championships have been taking place over the weekend. Yes, that really is a thing. And Hester Longagan from York, who knows a thing or two about porridge, was also there. Sadly, she didn't win, but she's been giving me lessons on how to make the best porridge. Here's how I got on. Morning, Hester.
Hello.
I hear you make a mean porridge.
I do indeed. Are you hungry?
I definitely am.
Come on in.
Thank you.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but for Hester, it's her favourite.
I love that oats are an indigenous crop. They're natural to our environment. The health benefits of oats and porridge as well. And porridge is something that so many people have stories about. It's something that is like in the fabric of so many of our childhoods.
My childhood porridge was definitely like glue.
Okay, we can work on that.
A lot of thought goes into the perfect bowl, so I'm getting a few tips.
I've soaked the oats overnight. It breaks them down so that when you do cook them, it takes a lot less time to cook them, and also it allows our bodies to process all of the amazing nutrients. So I'm just grabbing my spurtle, which is the traditional porridge stirring implement, which I cannot make a pan of porridge without.
Waving her Union Jack spurtle at the weekend, Hester joined other porridge enthusiasts from across the globe in Scotland to compete in the Golden Spurtle Championships. Now in its 29th year, contestants have 30 minutes to cook 4 bowls of traditional porridge and 4 bowls where they show their flair.
It was so intense, but it was so much fun. There was just so much creativity around, so much passion for porridge, so much innovation and so many amazing flavours. It was so exciting to be part of it.
Unfortunately, Hester didn't win, but this is her entry dish. Porridge with tahini, pureed dates with cacao, fresh pear, topped with praline and sesame and salt. Sounds posh.
I don't think I've even tried tahini, so I'm not sure about it in porridge, but I'm going to go with it, Hester. That is the best bowl of porridge I've ever had. That's amazing.
Thank you. I will take that. I think people think that I'm a bit mad for how much I love porridge, which I would definitely agree with.
Well, I'm definitely won over. My new breakfast of choice, porridge every time.
And it's kept me full till dinner.
Do they answer this? Do they do a national watching paint dry competition as well?
I knew you'd have something to say. How do you like your porridge, Paul?
I can do ready break. I don't mind ready break.
Oh, the brands are also available.
I'm a bit of a heathen. I mean, I could just imagine the porridge small talk. I mean, you've come away exhilarated, haven't you? She's been smiling all afternoon.
I have to say, she's very enthusiastic about porridge. It's hard to not get involved.
It's amazing. I need to get out a bit more, obviously. Let me show you a couple of pictures that have come in the last 24 hours. Beautiful autumnal scene, blue sky. I don't know what tree that is, but it's turning the most beautiful colour. That's Morley in Leeds. And actually, not far away from Morley, that's the Leeds-Liverpool Canal at Armley, looking beautiful as well. The tree's not quite turning there just yet. It won't be long. Keep the pictures coming in on Twitter, Instagram, or on the Weather Watcher website. So tomorrow's not looking too bad again. Most of us will be dry with some sunshine. It's a bit of a complicated setup this week. This weather front will bring some patchy rain during Wednesday, a fine start, some patchy rain later. This next system may well just slip to the south of us. It may change its track, but at the moment, Thursday's not looking too bad, but stay tuned with the forecast in case this does move. And once that lot's out of the way, Friday looks blustery, but mostly dry with some sunshine. Now there's the satellite picture from early this afternoon. It has been a wonderful day. Temperatures have reached 15 degrees, but of course it's mid-October, it's autumn. The winds will fall light tonight, and with clear skies I think we'll see two things happening, well three actually, mist and patchy fog, and there will be a ground frost in some spots. I think rural places may well be close to freezing point perhaps. Through parts of northern and eastern Yorkshire, most favoured for that. Tomorrow's high water time, Scarborough 5:38, Bridlington at 5:54. So a mixed picture in the morning, some of us waking up to fog. That'll take a couple of hours to clear. Otherwise, it's a dazzling start with blue sky and sunshine, especially away from the Pennines. Through the days, temperatures rise, still some strength in the sun to create some cumulus clouds. So it does turn partly cloudy a little bit through the afternoon, but remains dry with some sunshine and temperatures. Not bad for mid-October. We're looking at 15, possibly 16 degrees with just a light west or southwesterly wind. So let's have a look at the all-important further outlook. Well, a fine start on Wednesday, as I've mentioned, some patchy rain developing through the day. At the moment, uncertainty, but Thursday should stay dry and bright. And then it's a windy day, but a mostly dry one on Friday with some sunshine, and that's the forecast.
I think you need to express yourself a bit more with your breakfast, Paul.
Do you think so?
I think you need to start your day the right way.
Well, I'm going to go home and talk porridge small talk with my partner. I bet she can't wait.
I bet she can't wait. That's it from us. What a night it's going to be. Bye-bye.